So this morning, Anthony Fauci went in front of, there was a hearing this morning to answer some questions about the origins and his involvement and everything associated with it. And it was led by Rand Paul, Senator Rand Paul. And he's kind of had him in his, his metaphorical crosshairs for a while because he thinks that Fauci stinks. And I think there's there's a smoking gun when it comes to that. But this morning, Rand had Fauci in front of him. And during this process, Paul makes an opening statement, and then the opposition makes an opening statement, and then the questioning begins. And wouldn't you know it, this is what has perspired or happened today.
Dr. Fauci, were you ever made aware of gain-of-function research on monkeypox being conducted at the National Biodefense Analysis and Countermeasure Center and back at Fort Detrick?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution.
Dr. Fauci, did the CIA ever transfer funds to NIH under an interagency agreement?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution.
Now, Arch, I know that you don't live in the United States, so you may be asking yourself, what is the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution?
I know exactly what this means. This means, yes, I did that. That was me. I'm guilty of that.
Yeah, it's been interesting to see the Fifth Amendment thing, because I think, was it Trump a couple of years ago who was in had some questioning, and he used the Fifth Amendment, and people were like, you know, if you use the Fifth Amendment, you're guilty, right? And all those people today are like, the Fifth Amendment's a great thing. But yes, it says no person shall be held to answer for a capital or otherwise infamous crime unless on a presentment or indictment of a grand jury, except in cases arising. What it pretty much just says is you don't have to answer if you feel like it could put you in trouble, more or less. I think that's pretty much the idea. But what was interesting was people picked up on this very quick. And a lot of people actually, I saw this going around social media yesterday, that it's the likelihood of him just using the Fifth Amendment for literally every single question was going to be put out there. And then all of a sudden people were like, oh, okay, well, we're just going to allow this to kind of skew him and just, I say skewer him over the coals and just let him hang himself. And this is a really good example of that.
To fund this dangerous research in China.
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer.
You're going to hear this a lot.
Based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution.
In the red folder on your table is a copy of Section 192 of Title II of the U.S. Code. Your counsel has been provided a copy as well. That section makes it a crime for a witness appearing under subpoena to refuse to answer any questions pertinent to the question under inquiry. Do you have that in front of you?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution.
Let the record record that the witness has refused to answer whether there's a folder in front of him based on his Fifth Amendment right.
You hear the laughing right there.
It's pathetic.
It is pathetic. It is pathetic. Arch, you looking at this from the outside, and what are your thoughts?
Well, the thing is, again, as I've talked about on many previous occasions, the justice system in the West and in America, they were all based upon the assumption that everybody engaging in it were honest gentlemen, in essence, and that you would engage with the judicial system openly and honestly. And so something like the Fifth Amendment is a good idea, because sometimes you might not necessarily know the exact circumstances around an accusation. And so if you're unclear on that, obviously, you should not speak on it. That's the safest thing to do, lest you incriminate yourself. That's the intent of the Fifth Amendment. But in a world where everybody's just a giant fucking crook, it simply becomes I'm not going to say anything because I know it makes your job harder. Because, of course, it does. Because now they can't extract any admissions from him. They can't catch him out on his own words. It might sound ridiculous, but this is the best strategy, especially if you're maybe guilty of one or two things. Because now, no matter what evidence they have, at the very least, they can't get you on a lie, you know?
Well, I think that was the whole idea here, was he had been pardoned before for everything that he had said previously, and this would be a new entry into that. So anything he says will be used against him. And apparently things that he said in his diary could potentially. Now, people got tired of this. Paul got tired of this. And, I'll tell you, this was interesting.
Dr. Fauci, would you like to at least answer this one question for us today and let us know whether or not you've changed your mind on whether or not the benefits of gain-of-function research outweigh the risks?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
This should just be a soundbite at that point. Something you just play.
I agree. Now, before I get to what Paul says here, the underlying star of this entire thing,
the supermodel behind him.
Correct. I don't know who this lady is, but she is a rising star in politics. No idea if that's been the big question: is who is this lady directly behind him? But hey, there's definitely a difference between people behind him and the people behind the other side as well, and mostly it's in girth. But here, this is his response to this.
The chairman has denied your assertion of privilege and directed you to answer, but you nonetheless refuse and stand on privilege despite the existence of the pardon. The committee will have to consider after this hearing what appropriate action should be taken against you for the failure to testify after being directed to do so. It's against the law to obstruct an investigation of Congress. There will be repercussions to your refusal to testify today.
I think that's all well and good. Show me the consequences.
Well, that's exactly it. Because there will be consequences. Sure, there'll be a slap on the wrist, maybe a fine, maybe he goes to jail for 30 days. It'll be infinitely softer than the alternative.
Can I jump in real quick?
Of course, Phoenix.
Phil Labonte, you may remember him when you were on Timcast.
Yeah.
He had a great tweet. I'll just read it real quick. If the Trump admin can't come up with the courage to ignore the pardon and arrest Fauci, then they should arrange for Fauci to be extradited to literally any country in which people lost their lives due to COVID or vaccine injury. His crimes didn't just affect the U.S. And then, boom, that pardon means shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Extradite him, huh?
Guantanamo Bay, that place I can never pronounce. Set him there. Yeah. But the other terrorists. It'd be fun.
Huh. That's it. Yeah, I see that tweet right here. That's an interesting idea. I mean, yeah, that only covers the United States, but the question is, did his decisions impact the rest of that individual country? And,
sure.
I would argue, sure, absolutely. Well, what's interesting is after Paul confronted him this morning about saying there will be consequences for this, that's when the fireworks kind of started, because everything was pretty mundane up to this point. And that is where Anthony Fauci's attorney tried to chime in right here. And he actually got booted out of the hearing.
But the attorneys are not recognized. In fact, the attorney was told not to sit at the table, and he's not obeying that recommendation. There's a row behind you, sir. That's where you were told to sit, and you're not. And now you're disrupting the proceedings. And so, look, this is the way Anthony Fauci wants to be remembered. For a lawyer not listening to the rules. That's the way you want to be remembered, and that's what you're going to do. You are not recognized, sir. Security, please remove him from the room.
Fauci's like, hello, darkness, my old friend.
Yeah. And you'll see, the amount of questioning here, and he realizes that he's getting grilled. This is not a good look for Fauci at all. Just playing the Fifth Amendment the entire time, because he did not answer one single question this entire hearing. Let's see how this finishes up. So he gets escorted out. Great, wonderful. But I think as the questioning continues here, as the questioning continues and makes its way through, there were some really like good social media moments, but one moment for me really hit, and that was remember Rick Scott? He's the guy that Hassan Piker said, I believe, wasn't he the guy? I just based off memory, I said his name, then I was like, oh, that's it. He was the guy that Hassan Piker kind of targeted and mentioned Rick Scott's address or something, I believe. Look, Phoenix, it looks like you're going to do a little digging on that. But Rick Scott just went off on Fauci. And I think the way that what he says here makes a lot of sense.
Yes. So Hassan Piker talked about Senator Rick Scott during a February 2025 live stream, stating that if people truly cared about Medicare and Medicaid fraud, they would K Rick Scott.
Right. Okay. So here's the same guy that Hassan Piker targeted, and he's addressing Anthony Fauci.
Close with this. Here's how he impacted my family and people close to me. I have daughters with children. You can't imagine the questions they had around vaccines for their kids and themselves, and the pressure, the unbelievable pressure to make the right decision for their health. I can tell you pregnant women who worked with me were so scared because every time they went to the doctor, they were told something different about taking the vaccine. And you caused this. Imagine being a mom trying to protect their kids, or an expectant mother trying to figure out what to do. Every 3 weeks, a doctor tells you a new set of guidance on a vaccine. The haphazard information you released and pushed on the American people with little research is appalling, and why there's so much distrust in our institutions today. That trust is crucial to public health, and you, more than any person or event in my lifetime, have destroyed that trust for millions of Americans. You lied to hundreds of millions of people amid the worst public health crisis in a century. You failed to follow your own guidance. You forced people to watch their loved ones die alone over the phone. It's disgusting. You destroyed the federal government's credibility when it comes to public health. We have entire generations of Americans who, rightfully so, do not trust our institution to keep people safe because of you.
I want to stop that really quick. That statement right there. We have an entire generations of Americans who, rightfully so,
do not trust our institution to keep people safe because of you.
How many of y'all know people that do not want to go to the doctor now, or do not trust the government and or doctors because of what happened in COVID? I know that I do. I have friends, I have family members who are just like refuse to go see the doctor because they just don't trust what they're being told because of what he mentioned right here. This was much bigger than, this was obviously an absolute catastrophe that happened. But the biggest breakdown here, yes, people died. It's horrible. But the amount of residual damage from the distrust that target number one here, Fauci, threw around, that was the biggest issue, one of the biggest issues for me, because that will ultimately end up hurting people long run. I don't know, Phoenix, do you know people who are like that?
I know tons of people, and I think even probably some of us have had from time to time, just even when they just talk about anything going on, that there's XYZ going around right now, whatever that thing is. I think a little piece of our brains now even just says like, I don't know if they're probably going to get a vaccine for that now. Like, you're always on guard all the time. So if you don't even know someone, you ourselves have probably had those moments where now you're always wondering, is this BS? Are they trying to sell me something? Are they trying to inject me with something? It created a minor paranoia amongst all of us, I'd say. Rightfully so.
Richard Fitz, my boy in the chat, Richard said something that I think, said it in so few words, but nailed it. It's a scar that can't be healed. And I think that's how a lot of people feel about 2020. And a lot of people who feel about the distrust that they feel. Arch, this is not a strictly American thing, or maybe it is. What is the feeling over on your side of the world when it comes to COVID, the restrictions, Anthony Fauci, and everything that you're seeing here?
Well, It was actually a Norwegian scientist who discovered the heart flaw with the not the American vaccine, but one of the alternative vaccines that came out early was actually proven to see a marked increase in heart problems, and that led to that being shut down. But it indicated to a lot of people that this obviously wasn't being done properly, and then we've had rashes of suspicious early deaths afterwards. Obviously, the constant booster shots and so on. I know very few, like a lot of people over here who tend to trust institutions, because we Norwegians do tend to trust ours, got the first booster shot and the second. And, it became increasingly ridiculous as they just piled on, as obviously the public narrative went completely against what people were now being told. And eventually, people just stopped paying attention to it entirely. And that kind of is COVID in general. Like, I saw a very poignant tweet the other day, which asked, why haven't there been any movies about COVID? I mean, this was an enormous event, right? A worldwide pandemic. Surely there must be tales of heroism, of exceptional courage, of figuring it out. You could surely make a thriller out of this at least, right? Or dramas or something. Nothing. And because it really does feel as if the entire world somewhat recognizes that the entire COVID period was just kind of embarrassing, like nothing really worked as it should. All of our institutions failed. And we look back upon it and go yeah, we kind of just want to forget about that now.
There is a lot of wanting to gloss over this ridiculous time that totally, made a lot of people distrust the government and institutions. Here, let's go and finish this, because this clip is just chef's kiss.
This has destroyed decades of progress and lifetimes of work because you wanted to fuel your own ego and be the center of attention. What would you do differently knowing what you know today, Dr. Fauci?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
All the evidence is right here, and you still can't bring yourself to tell the truth or apologize because you received an auto-pin pardon from a staffer in the Biden White House. If we have another pandemic tomorrow, millions could die because of what you did to make Americans lose trust in their government when it comes to medicine and healthcare. How many families have you apologized to had to watch their loved ones die alone? You breached public trust, and now you're hiding behind a fraudulent pardon. Your legacy will not be as a man that saved America from COVID, but as a man who destroyed the public trust in America's public health institutions in exchange for 5 minutes of fame.
I love as well that he's reading that up. That's obviously a prepared speech, because he knew so fucking sure what Fauci would say. He's like, yeah, I can just write this out. This is really not a problem.
They knew what was going to happen. They knew the Fifth Amendment was going to be thrown out there, and they knew that it's exactly how it's almost scripted, if you will. Mm-hmm. Now, Josh Hawley went in on this as well, and he mentioned the idea of can he actually use the Fifth Amendment? You see this guy on social media all the time, and this is a really interesting exchange.
Constitution.
Let's just get one thing straight. You don't have any rights under the Fifth Amendment because you've been pardoned, as you very well know. As the Supreme Court has been clear for a century and more, Brown versus Walker, 1896, when he has been pardoned, he may not stand upon his privilege. You know that. Your lawyer is sitting behind you now, shifting nervously in their chairs. They know it. This isn't about the Constitution. This isn't about the law. This is about contempt. Contempt for this body and contempt for the American people. But I think I know why you're doing it. It's because you don't want to answer questions. It's because you did all kinds of terrible things. It's because during the pandemic, you got rich, didn't you? You got rich while people were dying, hundreds of thousands of Americans, over 1 million in the end, and you were getting rich. And not only were you doing that, you were using federal employees with taxpayer money to apply for and solicit cash prizes for you personally. Cash prizes totaling over $1 million. You did all of that during the pandemic, didn't you? That's a question.
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Anybody want to guess Fauci's net worth?
Don't want to think about it.
Probably like 500 million or even a billion.
No, it's not that much. But his net worth did double between 2019 to 2023
Shocking.
to $15 million right here.
$15 million.
This is a guy who's worked in the government his entire life.
It's
Good
strange
investing.
how government employees are only paid heavily at the top when they get in charge of things.
Yep, he was the highest paid government employee in the entire United States. And there's another back and forth. It's about 5 minutes long of Howley going after Fauci and just literally providing receipts, emails where he's talking about these grants and the money that he was sending his staffers out to more or less collect on and to do their best to make sure that he got the money from all these things. He has an entire list of people that employees, federal employees that went out to apply for awards. Let me actually just play a small snippet of this here.
Federal time using federal employees and federal resources. Here they are over my shoulder. Besides the Dan David Award, you've got the Partnership for Public Service. You've got the Adelson Prize. You've got the Smithsonian Award. You've got the National Academy of Medicine's Award. You've got the CDC Foundation. In fact, you turned your staff into a full-time application machine. You actually wrote to people and said, do you think maybe I'd qualify? And you got cash for all of this. And it wasn't just 1 or 2 employees, was it? In fact, you used 8 separate federal employees on federal time using federal resources to solicit cash awards. Isn't that true?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Here they are right over my shoulder. Here's all of them. The people that you use, federal employees, so that you could go and get cash money. And the most hilarious part is that you weren't content to even dragoon them into applying for all of these cash awards. You then had them go out to the ethics agencies and ethics watchdogs and demand that you be able to get the money. That's right. We've got it in your emails. Your staff and employees on federal time, using federal resources, being paid with federal dollars, are soliciting cash for you. And then they're turning around and saying to the agency, we don't want just an answer. We want to get to yes, because Fauci wants the money. He wants it. We want to get to yes, and yes takes time. This is your chief of staff again, using federal email to pressure the agency's own ethics people so that you could get money, so that you could get rich. And it violated the law, didn't it, Dr. Fauci? Didn't it? It violated the law, didn't it? It is a question. You can answer. Go ahead.
On the advice of counsel, I respect.
There it is. All right. So the
They
answer
should
is
have played
yes.
something from Cuba Gooding Jr. Show me the money.
I with all this, I think this is it's great to see him raked over the coals, right? Will people that need to see it? Probably not. The people wearing masks, the people who are so broken from that experience see it? Probably not, right? This will not be covered on the mainstream media, which is insane. Will he see anything, any sort of repercussions? Man, I hope so. But do I doubt it? Absolutely. That goes back to the idea of I don't have a whole lot of faith in the government when it comes to these things. He was also questioned not just inside the courtroom, but outside the courtroom after this hearing is done. And let's see how that went.
Holes in the argument.
Yes, hold on a second. Here comes Dr. Fauci. Hold on 1 second. We're going to try to get a question from him. Stand by. Dr. Fauci, what do you think about being held in contempt of Congress? Do you know how many times you invoked the Fifth?
Yeah, well, obviously he just left on in there. So this was obviously a crazy situation, and I really hope something happens here. Marty
I would
O'Donnell,
love real quick just to see a side-by-side, someone to edit, like all those rapid-fire questions being shot at him, and on the other side is all the Fauci dances and all the other bullshit that was there. I think it'd be a very good video.
Fauci
It spells everything out about what happened.
Yeah, the vaccine dance.
All that stuff. And the Fauci as our hero and the Fauci candles and all that stuff. and then have him, even that clip of just him, if it's all true, of him trying to get awards and cash prizes and shit. It's phenomenal how much everyone got played, or at least appears to be, allegedly.
Well, Marty O'Donnell tweeted out this morning, says, the moral of The Boy Who Cried Wolf: when institutions lose the trust in the people, sheep will die. Looking at you, Dr. Science, the Fifth Amendment won't save the sheep. Speaking of Marty O'Donnell, joining us now, Marty O'Donnell. Hello, Marty. Good to see you.
Hey, everybody. Nice to see you.
Hi.
Good to see you again.
Hey.
So we were just talking about the Fauci hearing this morning, and as we kind of put a pin on that and move on to talk about Halo, I figured this would be a good opportunity for you to kind of
talk about either one of those things. It's funny. It's an amazing day, especially with President Trump or the White House putting out a tweet with the Halo music in it. It's like everything's funny. Coming together. It's wonderful.
So what did you think of what you witnessed this morning? I'm going to be very honest. I don't think anything's really going to come of this. I think this is fun to, it's like political theater. I hope something comes of it, but.
Well, I'm very serious. I've been actually saying this moral of the story thing for a while. It's not that we've lost trust in institutions. Institutions have squandered our trust, right? The institutions across the board have squandered our trust, and I don't know how we're going to get it back. It's going to take a long time for us to start believing what we hear from institutional places. So, and the problem with that is in The Boy Who Cried Wolf, the villagers were not the villains, and the boy represented the institution of how you protect the sheep against the wolf, right? Once he squandered his ability to be believed, the villagers said, okay, we don't believe you anymore, which means the consequences, the sheep die. So I'm looking at this and saying, this is what's going to happen. The sheep will die. Now, what does that mean? I don't know. I mean, who are the sheep? What are the sheep? But there's going to be consequences. We need to have institutions we can trust. So when somebody says, here's a bad thing that's about to happen, or here's something we've discovered and everybody needs to, take shelter, we won't do it. And there's a reason why we won't do it. It's you've squandered our ability to trust you. And we need, it has everything to do, in my opinion, with, and part of the reason I'm running for Congress is that we need to have people in the institutions who are just basically trustworthy people. They're not there for power. They're not there for glory and fame. They're not there so they can be on Oprah. They're not there so that they can talk to Barbara Streisand. I mean, I believed Dr. Fauci when he first came out. I thought, yeah, this guy seems like a trustworthy person. He represents the institution. But he doesn't. And his diary proves that. And his going before Congress, where he should be telling the truth now, especially now that he's been pardoned, he should be just saying, okay, yeah, I screwed up. Think how much better it would be if he said, I screwed up. I'm sorry. I was interested in fame and glory, and my mind was clouded, and I made some bad decisions. Please forgive me. How much further would that take us into being able to build trust and confidence back up again in our institutions? But by taking the fifth, it just is going to prolong this. Now we know that he's not a trustworthy person. We know that the entire Democrat Party is going to be supporting him and supporting this lie. And supporting the kind of person who's more interested in fame and power than anything else. So now we have even less confidence in the institution of our government, not just the CDC or the health organizations or science. Right. It's just it's getting worse, and that's what bothers me the most. Sorry, I went on to a rant, and we could talk about Halo if you want, but I think this is actually pretty important.
Yeah, we're going to get to Halo in just a second. Yeah, go Arch.
It's an excellent thing you mentioned there as well, though. The trust in the institutions has been broken because they have. Because you point out something that actually made me think about this. Why wouldn't he just simply raise his hand and go like, okay, I messed up, right? because that would be the natural thing to do. If you have a pardon, you have immunity, you're not going to be persecuted. Why not do it? What personal honor do you have left to lose that you would not already lose by simply sitting there claiming the fifth over and over and over again? Who are you going to convince? And the only real explanation for that, of course, is that he's protecting somebody else, which is also the reason. Because you might think, okay, well, if they just get Fauci, then people will trust the institutions again. But obviously, Fauci isn't the entire problem here. He is merely one symptom of a much larger rot that is deep, deep within this machine.
Yeah, totally agree.
You know, you mentioned something about him. If he was to come out and say, like, look, you're right. Sorry. I truly messed up, and he was to show any sort of remorse here. Here's the thing, is Americans in particular, they love a good redemption story.
Yes.
Now, I don't know how many people would be able to, in a situation like this where people have died and things like this. I don't know how many, if that redemption story would be good for Fauci, but we've seen historically that Americans love a redemption story. And if he comes back, and maybe he's just too old, too rich, too stubborn at this point, to say that he was wrong, or maybe he's just fearful that he's actually going to be put in jail. But people they will root for you if you just say, man, I messed up, and I'm sorry that I made these horrible decisions that I ultimately regret. And you're right, I did it for money, and I'm sorry. It depends on it, but there is some truth in what you said. I don't know how forgiving some people would be who lost their loved ones because of his, but there is some truth.
Add to that too, that how bad that would be for the previous administration, for the Democrat Party. Like you're talking about a catastrophe. You're talking about people's brains that are already broken, becoming even more broken. It would be pretty chaotic if he came out and admitted yes to all of these things. That would be an interesting show that we would all be witness to.
Excuse me. My thing is that the majority of the American people are people who know that not everybody's perfect, that you can get caught up in the moment, that bad things can happen and you can make bad choices. And if somebody admits that, majority of people are forgiving. They will forgive. Now, I agree with you, Craig. There's probably a lot of people who can never forgive Fauci. What he did today is certainly not going to help him go towards the path of forgiveness anyway. But at least the rest of us could say, okay, yeah, we know what it's like. You had your shot on Oprah. You had your shot on, the fame clouded your mind. The Kardashians did something, whatever. It's fine. So we could say, okay, at least now we know we have to be more careful with, let's say, the basic integrity of the person or the people who rise to the top of these institutions. Maybe it needs to be more than just some political maneuvering that allowed Fauci to get to the top. Somebody needed to have seen that this guy is vulnerable to, being power hungry or fame hungry or whatever. But until we start looking at the actual individuals who are getting into positions of power, who are getting near the levers of power, and saying, you don't deserve to be near the levers of power because you as an individual have no moral core. You see, we've lost. That's the whole story of the boy who cried wolf, is that the boy wanted attention, and so he lied to get attention. So along with, it's a morality tale, right? We have to have a moral core. And our country is losing its ability to understand how to determine good and evil and how to make decisions based on what we know is right and wrong. And we have to get back to a spiritual foundation. And I think there's a lot of young people out there who are saying, yeah, I grew up with an iPhone, but it's not working for me. It's not fulfilling the hole in my heart. And there's a spiritual hole that we need to be able to talk about that again. And we need to be able to find people who have a spiritual foundation, who have some sort of core morality. And those are the people that we can trust again. And I don't know how to fix that, honestly. It's going to take a miracle.
I just think that when you go up on the stand and you answer questions like this with the Fifth Amendment, it doesn't make you look very good.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, nothing says honesty like taking the fifth, huh, Doc? Let's try something. What day of the week is it today?
On the advice of counsel,
Oh,
I respectfully
no.
decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
What color tie are you wearing?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
What color's the carpet in front of you?
On the advice of
Did you see like that look right there? Just like
He thought about it.
Oh my god! Yep. He looked.
That's pathetic.
I don't know, fuchsia.
I mean, at a certain point, you do look like a supervillain.
Yeah,
You know?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Have any of
So-
you guys been on a jury? And like, including Vlad.
Sadly, no.
So when you're on a jury, one of the things that happen, I believe it or not, I'm old enough to have been on jury duty, I think 4 times now, which is doesn't seem fair, but enough years have gone by between being called. One of the juries I was on, I remember, was actually a criminal case, and the guy who the accused did not testify on his own behalf. And before the jury goes in to determine guilt or innocence, the judge says, put no stock in the fact that the defendant did not testify on their own behalf. They have a right to not testify. Now, that's what we're instructed as jury members, but human beings know if I was innocent, I would be shouting it from the treetops, right? I would be shouting it from the rooftops. So you can't help as a member of the jury thinking there's got to be a reason why this person's not testifying and telling us what happened. You can't help it as a human
Right.
being. It doesn't matter what all the rules are. You're like, if you're taking the fifth, you're saying I'm not saying anything on the grounds that it may incriminate me. Okay, you're saying a lot. You're saying, yeah, I did it. And we know he did it because we're reading his diary. So it doesn't matter to me whether we get, justice on this thing, whether he ends up going to, standing trial for something, or he gets in contempt of Congress or any of those things. It doesn't really matter that much to me. He's been exposed. This entire house of cards around the whole COVID thing and the way we responded to COVID has been exposed. And let's move from there. But I am very worried about how we choose the people to represent us, how we choose people to be part of these institutions that we need to have confidence in.